I'm never gonna take an asteroid.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Mayo Season back with a new series. I decided to make this series because I've been playing UFC for, I want to say, for about 2 to 3 months now, strong, like being one of my main games. Started getting back into watching MMA and all types of things like that. So ideally what I want to do is split these things up into separate videos based on what I think should be fixed in the game. Right now I have striking, clinch, grappling, career mode, calves, online gameplay, and presentation and or general things that I feel like should be fixed in the game. Now what I'm going to do when I name these things that I feel should be changed about the game, I'm going to separate them basically by things that I feel can be patched into UFC 4 or we could possibly still see in UFC 4, and then the other things are going to be things that obviously are going to have to be done in the future installments because there's only so much they can do at this point with the game already being developed. I'm going to go ahead and put out this disclaimer. Yes, I am what some people would call a simhead. So what that basically entails is when it comes to sports games, Madden, NBA 2K, UFC as well, stuff that I watch on the regular, like for me personally, I'm going to want the game to represent that as close as possible. And I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments when I mention a lot of things saying, oh, well, it's a video game. Now, I completely understand that, video games obviously have limits and they can't be exactly like real life. But with that being said, having played UFC Undisputed 3 in 2011, my expectations are a little bit high when it comes to simulation MMA, because that game was probably the closest we've had in terms, well, specifically when it came to the grappling, the ground game and the clinch. Obviously the striking for its time was a whole lot more arcade than what it is now, but I still feel like there are some things that UFC 4 could take from that game and implement. So during all of these videos I'm going to drop, within the next week or 2 weeks, I'm going to make sure that I put in a lot of clips or videos that I can actually find and put up from actual real life fights, so people get a better understanding of what I'm talking about and they don't think I'm just pulling stuff out of the air. The last thing I want to mention before I get started on the striking segment is the fact that I don't think this game should have came out when it came out. UFC is on a 2-year life cycle, so basically they drop a game every 2 years. Instead of it being like a yearly release like a Madden or 2K, they come out every 2 years. So I think it's been 14, 16, 18. Obviously they had one drop in 2020. With that being said, I'm pretty sure EA Sports knew that the next gen consoles was coming out in the holiday time. Now obviously I could be wrong. I don't work for EA and I obviously don't know when the development started for UFC 4. But if they did have the knowledge of, the knowledge of when the next gen consoles were going to come out, because we've been hearing about holiday 2020 for at least a year and a half now at this point. So if they already knew that, I don't think it was smart for them to just continue on their normal 2-year cycle and drop 5 months before the next gen consoles come out, because they could have easily waited those 5 months, used that development time to optimize this game for next gen. They could have had so much more features and the graphics could have been better. I mean, we don't know yet, the consoles aren't out, but if they did know, I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on that, honestly. Even if they had to wait until 2021, I'm pretty sure MMA fans would have been perfectly fine waiting a couple of more months after the next gen consoles had dropped to get a more optimized game for UFC 4. It's already a 2-year cycle, so it's not like we're not used to waiting a while for another UFC game. Alright, so now I'm finally going to get started on the things that I want to see fixed in striking. I have a whole lot of notes about the striking in this game because I'm not really a fan, so I might actually have to split this into 2 parts because I don't want the video to be too long. Now, like I stated before, I'm going to start off with the things I feel can be patched into UFC 4 or things that can already be implemented into UFC 4, and then I'm going to work my way into things that we're probably either never going to see or we're only going to see in 2022 on next gen. The first thing I want to mention is kind of quick. I don't even know if they can actually fix it at this point because of the way the game is set up, but I hate how you have to enter somebody's guard in some situations to finish them. If you watch MMA, then you know that this is an absolute no-no for someone that is a dedicated striker. Obviously, if you're confident in the ground game, it's not that big of a deal, but obviously in this game it gives a lot of people chances that they shouldn't have. If you're fighting someone that's not a good striker and you want to stay off of the ground but you knock them down, in this game you have to let them back up, because if you hop on top of them, enter their guard, and you don't get them out of there, you're stuck on the ground unless you have a good ground game or using a character with a ground game. And a good example of that is someone like Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz in the second fight. When he was knocking him down, he would try to enter his guard to land a couple shots, but once he saw that Nate was just laying there to let him enter his guard, he told him to stand up, because that's just not advantageous for him. That doesn't make any sense. Why? That's literally idiotic from Conor's standpoint. What makes it even more frustrating is that in UFC Undisputed 3, they did not have this problem. I'm going to post a clip on the screen now where back then, if you knock somebody down, you would never completely enter their guard. You would basically enter a stat guard position from most places, or a knee on belly, or just basically a postured position but not being completely attached to them. So you could land down strikes without being completely attached to them and in their guard. And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, that could be overpowered, but if they fix the ground and pound, which we'll talk about in a different segment, the whole point of you being on the ground and pound is not to just dodge strikes. You want to stop them from raining strikes by controlling their posture. You know what I mean? So if you can catch the strikes coming in, pull their head down, pull them into their guard, then that makes more sense. But me just landing into their guard is completely idiotic, and they need to fix it. Next thing I feel like they should fix, they have to take out that stupid animation where people fall against the cage. It is the dumbest thing, and it happens so often, which I think is even more frustrating. It's like, if you knock somebody down next to the cage, they fall against the cage, they just lay there. If you try to finish them, they automatically stand up on their own, or it automatically lets you pin them to the ground for the ground and pound. They just need to completely erase that from existence, because I'm sick and tired of seeing it. Another thing I want to see is more accurate knockdowns. I just feel like the way they have the system this year, it's really weird, and it just looks really wonky. Now, me personally, I'm not even a fan of the UFC 2 ragdoll system that everybody loves so much. For me, that looks super arcadish. You knock somebody out, they're doing complete backflips and things like that. I'm definitely not a fan of that either, but I would take that over what we have now. If I had to choose, it'd be something closer to Undisputed 3. You knock somebody down, they go stiff, things like that, obviously. And when you land a punch, it makes sense. If I punch somebody with a right straight, and I'm going across his body to the left, and his body falls left. In this game, you can hit somebody with a whole fucking hook, and he just leans over like you hit him in the stomach and then falls forward. It's the weirdest shit ever. Now, this right here, in my opinion, is definitely the biggest problem with striking right now. And there's a lot of factors that go into why, this works so much. And it's obviously pressure fighting. Now, I personally am a counter striker, or I strive to be a counter striker. I say that. I like being able to take my time, pick my shots, and catch people walking forward. I get the most enjoyment out of that. I do understand that people in real life are pressure fighters. I understand that people like Max Holloway have lots of success with it, Kobe Covington, and I know that there are going to be people in the comments, saying things like that as reasons for why, it makes sense in the game. In real life, when it comes to pressure fighting, there are plausible counters for it. And that's the problem in this game for me, is that if you want to pressure fight, cool, but let it be a possible counter for people other than grappling, you know what I mean? Because when I fight online ranked, if I'm fighting a pressure fighter, if we're fighting bantamweight, all right, and you have Cody Garbrandt, if I don't have TJ Dillashaw or Cody Garbrandt and I'm not pressuring you back, I'm gonna lose without grappling. There's no way. The only way to beat pressure in this game is to pressure, and just hope you land more shots and be the better boxer, and hope you just don't get clipped with something. And for me, I don't think that's a good way to play a quote unquote simulation MMA game. For me personally, I just hate seeing it, and I really hate playing against it. Now, there are lots of reasons why pressure fighting is so strong in this game. I'm gonna go over a couple of them. I think some of them can be fixed, and I think some of them we might just be SOL. And for anybody that don't know what that means shit out of luck. So number one reason is obviously stamina. People can throw strike after strike after strike for 5 consecutive rounds, and even with people that don't have a great gas tank like Max Holloway, we're going to be perfectly fine. They don't have any problem with walking forward. They don't have any problem throwing power strikes. It's like, bro, it's like nothing happened. They're just walking forward, throwing 300 strikes a match, bro. And I know, like I said before, people are going to say, well, Max Holloway, Kobe Covington, like, people like that, those are outliers. Like, that's not the average UFC fighter. There's a reason why they look at those people as, like, the best pressure fighters, you know? So if you want to look at an average MMA fighter and how many strikes he throws, I'm pretty sure that it's not as many as people are throwing online right now. It's crazy. And stamina is the biggest reason. They don't get tired when they walk forward and when they throw all of these punches. The pacing on this game, like, you can have the craziest pace, bro, and it's like you can last 5 rounds easy if you don't take damage, you know what I mean? And we're going to talk about counter-strike damage in a second anyways. Another reason is the block system in this game is absolutely horrible. I didn't like in UFC 3 when they added the block meter. It just logically doesn't make sense to me. And then they made it even worse in this game with how they have the block health so fucking low, bro. Like, you take 2 jabs and you take a hook after that, or you could take 3 jabs and your block meter is blinking. You know what I mean? And it's like, yo, it's like you have no choice but to retreat or just fire back with more shots, would, you know, put you at risk. So it's like the block meter is trash. I feel like they should go back to the UFC 2 block meter. That just makes a lot more sense. And I know they added it because they said people were camping the high block. But if you play UFC 2, that doesn't matter. The UFC game has been about high-low mix-ups literally for as long as I can remember, because they can't implement the fact that you're throwing a hook around someone's guard in this game. Like, they can't do that, or as far as I know, they don't have the ability to do that. So the game has always been about high-low mix-ups. So if somebody's camping the high block, hit low. I don't understand what's so hard about that, or what people find so difficult about that. Is it hard to block high-low mix-ups at times? Of course. It's hard to block them shits in real life. So I don't understand what the problem is, honestly. I feel like they should go back to the UFC 2 system, because the way they have that block health mechanic right now is terrible. People can walk forward, jab straight, the block is gone. So now, at this point, you're just retreating, trying to regain it, because it takes forever for your block health to come back. But while they threw the jab straight, their stamina came back basically immediately. So they're ready to throw more strikes, and you don't have block. This is the last one I'm going to mention in this episode, probably because this is the last thing that they can actually implement in this version of UFC 4 right now. And it has mainly to do with the stamina attacks you get for movement. I know a lot of people in the comments are going to say, well, if you're getting pressure, you shouldn't just block, you should use head movement, you should use your player movement in general. But the stamina attacks for moving is so crazy right now. If you lunge backwards to get away from a couple of strikes, you literally take a big chunk out every time you do it. And then if you try to sway, if you hold a sway, your stamina literally drains consistently. Like, it's not a chunk that comes out or nothing. So if you were to just do a hard sway or like a hard lunge in one direction and sit there, it literally drains the whole time. That, combined with the fact that there's no legitimate safe way to circle out of the cage, it makes it so hard to get away from strikes. A good example of how you would do this is if you watch UFC 253, Costa versus Adesanya. When Costa did move forward, which was only a handful of time, when he did move forward with strikes, they have an ability in the game where you could put your hand out like Adesanya did. That is possible, but you can only do it going backwards. Adesanya would put his hand out to gauge the distance, move backwards, and he could move laterally to circle away from the back of the cage instead of just backing directly up like your Romero did, which is how he got beat. So in the game, when you're moving backwards, even if you were to use a new mechanic to get that kind of space, which also drains hella stamina, it's not the best option if you want to keep a good amount of stamina. So even if you were to do that, you lose hella stamina and you can't move laterally, so you're just moving yourself into a corner. The only way you can get out of a corner is if you lunge, and that is so dangerous in this game, especially with the way people can throw combos with all the hooks and uppercuts. You're just bound to get hit. I'm not saying it's not possible to get out of bad situations, but I feel like it's just way too difficult. That's going to be the last one for part 1. I'm going to save the rest of this stuff for part 2 because a lot of that is going to be things that can't be added into this game, I don't think. It's probably going to be stuff you're going to see in the future, if not ever. So yeah, that's it for this one. I really appreciate you guys if you commented down below your opinions. I know I'm not right in every case, so I have no problem having a civilized conversation in the comments. If you just comment what you think, we can have a discussion. If you agree, disagree, doesn't matter. I just want to see a good game. I don't want to see only a counter-striking game either. Like, even though I am a counter-striker, I'm not gonna sit here and act like 2 counter-strikers isn't the most fucking appealing match in the world. When you watch it, it's usually pretty boring. So obviously that's not what I want. I just want all styles to be viable in the game, because that's how it is in MMA. If you can master a style, you know, and you're good at it, then you should be able to execute it in this game, regardless if, you know, what the meta is. You know what I'm saying? And obviously every game's gonna have metas, but I feel like they have to work on making a lot of things more viable. But that's all for this one. Please like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. This is my first video in literally 2 years. I'm gonna start uploading more. Obviously I gotta finish this series, and I'm gonna start streaming soon. So appreciate you guys if you made it this far. Yeah, have a good one.